Hi everybody, how are you guys doing today? This is not a floss tube, this is actually going to be a book talk. I have stitching stuff here because I'm going to film that right after. So you'll be seeing these will be a couple different videos that I'm going to do. So it's been a little bit since I did one of these or really any video. Work has been kind of crazy the last few weeks. We've had some projects back to back, and it's just been spend a lot of time doing that. So but I have been reading quite a bit, so I'm excited to talk about that. So let's go ahead. I want to start with what I've been watching. It's not just what I've been reading or what I've been listening to. And aside from the books that I'm going to go over, I have been watching most recently the newest episode or the newest season of Star Trek Discovery, which is episode 4 just came out this week. So that has been really exciting. I'm a lifelong Star Trek fan. I've enjoyed Discovery from the beginning. The second half of the first season was not my favorite with the Mirror Universe jaunt or whatever, but I think that what they've done with it and what I thought the second season was really good, and now what they're doing with the third season, I'm really excited about it. So if you like Star Trek, it is on CBS All Access here in the States. I think it's on Netflix in other countries, so you guys may have easier access to it than people here in the States. We have to get the CBS streaming service. That works out for me because I don't have cable and I liked CBS because I could stream the local channel. So that's what I use. Our CBS station here is pretty good in Tulsa. So that is one of the reasons why I went ahead and got CBS All Access, even despite the fact of Star Trek, that was also a good part of it too. As you can see, Augie is again up here on my lap and deciding what he wants to do. We'll see how long this lasts, but it seems like every time I get in this chair, he's going to be in here. I've also been watching Drag Race. I don't remember the timing of the last time I did one of these. So Drag Race Canada finished, and now Drag Race Holland has been going on, and it's actually finished this last week, so that may have been, I may have already covered Canada. I have not caught up to Holland, the finish of it. A couple of the queens that I really liked were not, they got eliminated, and I know who won, and I think she deserved to win, and I like her too, but some of my favorite queens were eliminated, so I kind of was like, hey, it went down on the priority list of what I want to spend time to watch. And it's a subtitled show because they're speaking in several different languages, but Dutch, Belgium, and I think there's another language that they speak. One of them, the drag queens speak, but so you have to read the subtitles, which means it's harder to do it and stitch at the same time, or it's harder to do it and you got to focus more than you do something else. So the last show that I want to talk about, what I've been watching, is the newest season of the Great British Bake Off, or in America we have to call it the Great British Baking Show, because apparently Bake Off is a trademarked or copyrighted name. I think Pillsbury owns the trademark of it, or the copyright. Anyway, they're not allowed to use their actual title. They have to change the title to broadcast it here, which it's now on Netflix here in the States as well, and they're doing it in episode by episode release. So it's not like we have to wait until the whole season is done in the UK and then we get it a few months later. They're doing it, I think it airs like Monday or Tuesday night, I think, in the UK, and then it's here Fridays. So it's not that bad of a downtime, but yeah. So I've really been enjoying it. It's nice to see it's just a great competition show where everybody is not trying to win by whatever means necessary. That it's very much like there's often times when somebody is done and somebody else needs a little extra help and they chip in, even though that could be, that could make that person win. Doesn't usually, but it's a nice camaraderie to it that I really appreciate. So I've loved that show for many years, and I enjoy when a new season comes out, so I've been excitedly watching that. Okay, let's get into the books. So first of all, I want to do my Make the Cut section, which again these are books that I have up in my bookshelf in my dining / game room, now that we have games anymore because we are not really socializing. And by we, I mean me and my friends who don't live with me. But so I have some bookshelves up in my dining room and / board game room that I keep some books up in there, and then more books in my office or craft room that have the rest of my stuff. But I kind of like these are the books that I am happy to show off. Well, I'm not happy about. There's a couple books that I don't show off, but these are books that I want people to know that I've read them and that I enjoy them, and as a conversation piece, if somebody's like, "Oh, have you ever seen this?" or "Oh, I've read that," that kind of thing. So these are books that I like and that I want to keep out there. And so I'm going to start with, these are Naomi Novik's Temeraire series, and His Majesty's Dragon is the first book. And then this is actually the 3-book set of the first 3 books. It's a 9-book set, and basically it's a historical fiction but with dragons. So it's set in the late 1700s, about early 1800s. So Napoleonic Wars in Europe, and the main character is a British naval officer who stumbles upon a dragon egg that was in French hands, and the dragon hatches and imprints on him, essentially. And so it becomes one of the British's dragons, and he now went from being a naval, I don't think he was he was an officer. It's been a little bit since I read it, but he was an officer in the Navy, and now he goes into the Air Corps. And it's very different for him. There's a lot of different things. Also, the dragons talk, so they are quite amusing. And there's just some different things about this. Every dragon they have different breeds of dragons, and they each have different qualities. They have different kinds of, well, I don't know the phrase that they use, but there's like some of them spit acid, some of them have different kinds of dragon breath or whatever, different aspects of them. So they really are quite different, and then there's all sorts of different dragons all across the world, and the way that they interact with each other, it's really cool to have both a historical element of it, and then you add dragons in, and what does that do? So I really enjoyed this. I read this a couple years ago, this series. It was very fun. I like history, and Napoleonic times are one of the areas that I've been interested in the past. So it was nice to see that, but then through this lens through a different, with a different element to it. I don't know that she's going to do any more in this series or in this world, but I would love to see something like this, but like in a different time period, like more of an ancient time period, or something just, different. This is really good though. So, they travel all across the world, the Americas, South America, the Far East, and just you get an idea of all these different cultures, but what if they have dragons? So it's really interesting. And the author, Naomi Novik, is also she'll show up again because I finished her new book. I was originally trained as an anthropologist, and then has turned to writing fiction, and so she applies a lot of that of her. I think she's an anthropologist. I may be wrong. That may be somebody else. But I think she was working in academia, and then she's kind of transitioned into popular writing and fiction, and she's really good. I think she's really great at storytelling, and I have loved all of her books that I've read, which I think I've read most of her catalog. I don't know that I've finished everything or read everything, but she's really good. So that is the first of the books that made the cut. And the second one is also a book that I reread this last month, and I want to show you guys that before, so we'll just do that here. So this is, the Stormlight Archive is the name of the series. This is by Brandon Sanderson, and this is book 3, Oathbringer. Now, book 1 and 2 are also in the Make the Cut, but I just enjoyed, so the 4th book is about to come out in a couple weeks, and I have loved this series. Brandon Sanderson is probably my favorite author, and I've read a lot of his stuff. I've loved everything. There's not something that I haven't loved. Some of it, maybe not as much, but I've loved everything that he's done. He's an amazing storyteller. He has a really great grasp on how to build a world and how to include the reader in it, and how to create a magic system or something to make it believable, even though it's completely fantastic. And so this is his epic fantasy series that he has been working on for years. Now, if you know The Wheel of Time, Brandon Sanderson finished out The Wheel of Time after Robert Jordan had died. Brandon came in and wrote the final 3 books. It was actually going to be 1 book originally, and then it was just too much, so they had to split it into 3. I like The Wheel of Time. I love The Wheel of Time with Brandon doing it. But I think that if we didn't have, I really like The Wheel of Time, and there are definitely some aspects of it that it's like, that's not as great, and there's some aspects that don't age as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I also think that if we didn't have The Wheel of Time, I don't know that we would have the Stormlight Archive, or that we would have other great series that have happened now. There was a lot that was pushed forward in the fantasy series genre by Robert Jordan and The Wheel of Time and his epic just monster of a series. And so I really like it. It also is it will show up in the future. It's on my bookshelf. But I think that I really enjoy the Stormlight Archive, and I'm really excited to see what happens next. So the basics of this series is, so Brandon has a universe of different series that take place in the same universe, and it's called the Cosmere. One of the aspects of this universe is that there was an all-powerful being, a being that had a lot of different power, and he was broken up into several different aspects of power that were kind of scattered across the universe, and some of these aspects, 2 of them, often 2 would settle onto one world, and then the people that lived on there would be influenced by them. So, like the Mistborn series, I think is, it's Preservation, and now I'm blanking. Dominion, I think. maybe not. So there's kind of like some like kind of good or more like good aspects and some like bad or more less good aspects. But the world that this series involves is called Roshar, and it is a planet that has like pretty much one big continent. There's a couple islands off of it, but it's not like ours where we have multiple continents. It's kind of one more mega continent that spans the planet with a few islands around it, which the mega continent is also called Roshar. So you have kind of a combination there of name of the planet and also the continent. And so this planet is it's different from ours. They have what they call high storms, which are essentially like a hurricane that comes through and swipes across the whole planet every so often. There's not a set time where they can predict it, but it's not like it's always a certain number of days apart. It varies. But so a lot of the plants and animals have developed hard carapace, or they are a lot of the plants look like rocks, and then they put out their plant parts when it's not storming, and then they pull them in when there's something going on or there's a storm or something, so they can protect themselves. And there's 2 sentient people that live on this planet. There's humans, and then there are the Parshmen or the Parshendi. They kind of have some different names for them. And the Parsh people are they call themselves the Singers. So that's also, maybe I'll use that word. So they are kind of they have the ability to change their form by using the storm and incorporating an aspect of an emotion or some kind of different entity. So they can go from kind of like a normal form or dull form to a warrior form where they have thicker carapace and they, they're bigger, stronger. They have nimble form where they are still bigger than dull form, but they can do things. And the way they communicate is through what they say, but also the rhythm of their speech. And so they have the rhythm that they're speaking to or communicating will convey the emotion or the an additional element than just the words they're saying. So it's an interesting aspect. They're humans and singers, and they have they're worried about Odium coming back and bringing what they call the Void Bringers, which are the evil things. So this world had been hit by continuous attacks from Void Bringers over generation and generation, and then they were locked away for a long period of time. But the Void Bringers are coming back, and they are, what's going to happen now? The good people, they have a group of people called the Knights Radiant that also had disappeared from the planet, but they are coming back, and they have there's 10 different orders of them, and they have different abilities to different kind of magic. Investiture is the term that they use, but basically they take they can do different things. So one would be the Windrunners, which is a group of Knights Radiant. They have the ability to manipulate essentially gravity, although they don't call it quite that. But they can change the direction that they fall, so it's essentially like they're flying. And then they can also adjust the weight and the direction that other things and other people are falling. And so that's they can do that kind of stuff. There's Light Weavers, and each Knight's Order Radiant has 2 aspects of magic that they can use, and they each overlaps with another order. So the Light Weavers can do 2 things. They can, I think they're one's called Light Weaving, and they can pretty much create disguises. They can change their shape. Well, they change their appearance. And other people, they can make things appear that you couldn't see before. They can do all sorts of that kind of stuff. They also have the ability to what's called soul casting, and they can change some object into another object. So they can change a stick into a puddle, or they can change a stone boulder into smoke. And they share that ability with another order called the Elsecallers, who have soul casting, and then they have another ability besides that. So it's a very, very interesting series. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy it so far. The new one is coming out. These books are massive. As I've talked before, I mostly read through audiobook, and this one is 50 hours. I mean, that's a long time to listen to anything. Because originally I was like, oh, the new one's coming out. I'll reread the series. Well, the first one is, if I reread this series, it would be like 140 hours. And that was like, I don't have that time in a month to do that. So I just was like, I'll read the third one, figure out, that'll give me an idea of where they were and everything, and then, come on, let's go. We can go from there. So, depending on other things and what else is going on, I think I'm gonna redo the whole series again once the new one comes out. Because there's also a novella that he is doing that is being released. I think it may be out now, or soon. That was kind of a bonus to, if you bought the special edition of his book 1, which I ordered, and he does like these commemorative leather-bound editions of his books that are several years after the initial publication, and they are beautiful and gorgeous, and I haven't bought one before, but I've really admired them. And he was doing, for the 10th anniversary of this series, he was doing the book 1, and it's so big that they have to release it in 2 volumes. So it's going to be kind of like this, where it'll have like 2 books in there and a sleeve around it, but it's gorgeous. I'm super excited to get it. He did it through is it not GoFundMe? Maybe something like that. No, not GoFundMe, but the crowdsourcing. It's a crowdsource thing where you kind of like get involved and you pledge, and then it happens. I'm blanking on the name, but it was so successful that they were not. The initial plan was to get them done and to be delivered before Christmas, and they sold out of that really quickly because so many people were interested in it, even though it was they thought, okay, it's gonna be 2 volumes. I don't know if we want to do that. Will people buy that, or do they just want 1 volume? Are they not gonna like it where there's 2? No, we loved it, and so it sold out, and so they added more, but they're like, we can't guarantee that they will be there by Christmas. They will be there sometime next year. So they did that. I've ordered that. You also, there were a couple of different packages and things that you get. And so included, I got this big poster of one of the main groups of people called Bridge 13. Yeah. And unless I miss, no, Bridge 4. I can't remember. They're a group of the characters, and I forget what number it is because I'm not thinking. I think it's 4. But anyway, so yeah, so it's a really great series. I really enjoy it. If you like epic fantasy, you should definitely check this out if you haven't. He is one of the best fantasy writers that definitely that's writing today. So if you want something a little less than this, I would recommend Elantris, which is a standalone book. It was his first book, but it is a good one. I would also recommend Warbreaker, which is another standalone book. Both of those happen within the Cosmere. The Mistborn series is a trilogy, and then there's a 4-book second group, which hasn't finished. There's 3 out, but there's a 4th one at some point. That's the same planet, different time period. But the original trilogy is really good. I like the new one too. They're a little different from each other, but anything by him is going to be great, in my opinion. So, okay, now on to what I've actually read recently. So, let's see. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you these on here. So this is Minimum Wage Magic, and this is by Rachel Aaron. I talked about last time the Heartstriker series. This is her second series in the same world. It's called the DFZ books, or just DFC. It takes place about 20 years after the end of the Heartstriker series. It's not really related. I mean, it's in the same place. There's a few cameos of characters from the Heartstrikers, but there's not... Well, there's one that is a pretty significant aspect, but she's also very different than what she was like in the Heartstriker series. So, if you're looking for the main characters of the Heartstrikers, they're going to pop up a little bit, but not like play a big role. But this is a really good series. I read all 3 of them. The first one is Minimum Wage Magic, and then you have Part-Time Gods, and then we've got Night Shift Dragons. So basically this is the story of a young woman, Opal Young-A, who is the daughter of a dragon, and she is rebelling against her father. She's human, but she's been raised as like his child. And her mother is his like chief, his like first among all of his humans, which sounds really weird, and his consort, sort of, but not really. Anyway, Opal is kind of rebelling against her father, doesn't want to go back to live with him in Korea. He is not on board with the Heartstrikers, and so she goes to school in Detroit, which is where where Julius Heartstriker is. And that's kind of there's some spoilery. Anyway, she's in Detroit, which is the Detroit Free Zone, which is a place that has some rules, but not very many, and they're not really enforced unless you pay for them. So she works as a cleaner. Basically, if somebody doesn't pay their contract, their rent, they get kicked out, and she goes into their apartment or their house and cleans it out of stuff. Sells whatever she can to make money for herself. The city gets a portion of it, and it gets cleaned. It's ready to be re-rented out to somebody else for the next month. And that's kind of her. It's like a Storage Wars type of thing where she's like bidding on stuff, but they don't know what's in it, and she's getting it and trying to find stuff. There's another cleaner, that's the name of the job, is being cleaner, that she gets involved with, and then they have a series of adventures through the books, and then her dad, the dragon, shows up, and there's a whole thing about that. So it's a really interesting series. I liked it. It's a little bit faster paced than the Heartstrikers, which I think is good, because that was one of the things I didn't like about Heartstrikers, was it was a little slow at times. And so there's definitely some aspects of it that are really, it was an elevated, well, it was nice to be in a place that was familiar from the prior series, but it was also nice to have it like be a little bit, I don't know, a little better, I guess, just in general. Okay, so the next book that I read those, and then let me see, actually, what did I read after that? Battleground. Okay, so then I read the new Jim Butcher book from the Dresden series, Battleground. I talked about Peace Talks, which was the one that comes right before it. This was released in July, and then this came out in September. Originally these were one book, and then he added a little bit more, split up into two. Essentially, that's Peace Talks is like the setup, and then this is a giant battle for pretty much the whole book. It's crazy. There's a lot that happens. There's a lot that happens for the series, and a lot of things that are very... There's a lot that happens. I don't know how to say it without... I mean, it's kind of crazy. I really liked it. I don't agree with all the choices the author made, but it's because I like some of the characters and I don't want them to suffer. And it's not that they're really suffering. Well, I mean, from a like, ooh, I want them to do well kind of perspective, it's kind of like, but from a story perspective, it's like, oh, that's good. Like, you want to see that, they have trials that they have to go through and everything. There's a lot that happens here that is really interesting. And it's a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I don't know when the next one, I mean, this is horrible because this book took like 6 years to write, I think. Well, not 6, but he was doing other stuff. There's other things going on in his life, and other books. But everybody's like, oh, so when's the next one? And it's not really, that's not a great, I don't want to be like that. I would love the next one to come out soon, but I don't know when it's going to be, and I'm not expecting it really anytime soon. But I think this is a great series if you like urban fantasy. This is not something where it just went crazy and you're gonna hate it. I don't think so. So that was really good, and I'm excited that we're able to bring that portion to a close. So I don't know how many more there's going to be, because originally there was going to be like 20 books and a final trilogy. We're kind of, I don't know what the original plan and what the plan is now, to what's the difference or what it's like. So, but there's definitely a lot of stuff that happened here that we're going to see ramifications of it in the next series. So I think it'll be interesting. And then I took I read a different fantasy series, or started one, and this is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And this is a story about 4 worlds, 4 different planets that's possible to travel between. It used to be more possible, and now only a few people have the ability to do it. And so the main character, the 2 main characters, end up traveling from world to world, and so you have, and it's all through the city London. In Grey London is essentially our world, and it's set in, I don't remember the time. I'd say the early 1800s, somewhere around there, or something. 1700, somewhere in there, not exactly sure. I think you can figure it out because they talk about witch kings, and I don't know that it's, anyway, so that is what they call Grey London. And then there is Red London, where the main character is from, and his London, and they have a lot more magic there. There's not much magic in Grey London, but there's some. And then there is White London and Black London. And Black London fell to magic or demons or something that they didn't really, it's not super clear, but years ago they closed the borders between the four, and only certain people, certain kinds of magicians called Antari, have the ability to travel between the worlds. And there's one Antari from Red London who's the main character, and then there's an Antari from White London who is bound into servitude by the two monarchs of White London. And White London also is magical, but has been struggling since Black London fell, and White London has kind of devolved into this weird, everybody's trying to feed off of each other's magic and everything. It's weird. But basically, you know, there's a plot to change what's happened and to move stuff around, and the main characters kind of get involved to stop it, which is really vague, but I'm trying to not do anything that's really a spoiler. And kind of, you don't really, at the beginning, the series doesn't really give you like a quick, this is what's going to happen type of, this is what you're, it's kind of a slower burn to it. But yeah, I really liked it. There's 2 other books in this series, and she has another series that she started out, that came out recently, that I think looks good as well. And then I read the Tower of Nero, which is from the Trials of Apollo. This is one of Rick Riordan's books. This is it's the Percy Jackson series. There's a couple different iterations. Percy Jackson and Jason Grace, and then this is a series where Apollo is being punished by Zeus, and he's been sent down to Earth as a human, and he is bound into servitude to another demigod, and they go on an adventure to stop the bad Roman emperors that are trying to take over the world, which is fun. It is a middle grader book, so it's just like the Percy Jackson and those series. It's a little bit, you know, it's younger. It's geared towards a younger audience. But I really like these books. I've read all of the Percy Jackson series and his stuff. I like it as something nice to just like. It's very easy to read or listen to, and it's pretty good. So I'm a big ancient myth fan, and so I like that aspect of it as well. That you know, Apollo and Zeus and the different gods and goddesses and different things. So it's really interesting. I liked it a lot. I also really like. So in some of his earlier books, there wasn't overt mentions of characters' sexuality or orientation, and I really do like the way he has incorporated that into his later books. Not in really like, these people aren't, there's not like sex scenes or things like that. I mean, these are teens, you know, high school age kids. Some of them now are like college level, but they're not like, it's not that, but they're very clearly like, he has a Norse series, the Magnus Chase series, and one of the characters there is gender fluid, and is literally gender fluid because they are a, well, they don't, at times she's masculine, a man, and at times a woman. And as a child of Loki, she is a shapeshifter that can literally change between, like, everything can change. So there's that aspect of it, which was really interesting to see. And it's not, it's something that Magnus learns about, but it's not dealt in a way where, like, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, that exists. These are these people. And you know, they give kind of like a myth reason for it in the series, but it's definitely like, it's not, I don't know, I liked it. I like the representation, and seeing that, you know, I've seen some of the like She-Ra on Netflix, Dragon Prince on Netflix. There's a lot more representation of just like normal people that happen to be LGBT plus, and I think it's nice to have that in all forms of media, but especially in an area where kids are going to be seeing it, so that there's, I mean, I think the biggest impact there would be the lessening of bullying by kids of other people are different, and you know, for that reason, you know, they get bullied, and all of that. So I really like that, and I'm really happy to see that in kids TV and literature. So I think it's really cool, and it's here too. Apollo. So many of the characters are demigods, so they have a godly parent and then a mortal parent. And Apollo has several children in Camp Half-Blood, one of which is a gay kid, and he has a boyfriend that is another demigod. And then, you know, Apollo is also, in the myths, is both attracted to females and males, and he also expresses his attraction to different characters throughout the series, or that he finds somebody attractive, or you know, that it's nice to see that just as an aspect of it, but it's not really made a big deal, I guess. So I was really happy with that, and this is the 5th book. This is the last book in this series. So it wrapped everything up. I really thought it was a good read. I liked all of these. Now, this series specifically has a lot, it's getting more, not adult, but the consequences are real, is I guess how I would say it. So, I mean, there are finality to some characters that I don't think you would see that. You didn't see that in the original Percy Jackson 5 books. There may have been some of that in the second, but you know, there's some definite endings for characters that people like, that have been around since some of those series. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm okay with it, obviously, but it was nice to see that. But yeah. Okay, and then the most recent book, almost done, is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. So this is the book by her that she is new, last few months. I don't know when it actually came out. This is a new series from her. It is, so it's not set in any world that she's written in before, at least that I can tell. But there are wizards in the world, and there are creatures that are called Maleficaria, and there's all sorts of different ones. And basically they hunt wizards to eat the mana and the magic ability of these peoples. And so wizards have kind of banded together and create different places to keep themselves safe. Well, their children, especially after the puberty, become very big targets for these creatures. So the Wizards of the World in the past created a school that exists outside of normal. It exists in like another dimension or something like that. But a place for these kids to train and to become better, and to then go through something to come out, and those that survive will become the next wizards for, you know, go back to their homes or to join a new place to band together and keep each other safe. There's a lot of kids that don't make it, and there is, because these creatures are also in the school, and they grow, and then they try to come after the kids, and the kids that don't, that get lazy, or not lazy, but that miss something, or there's often things that happen that these kids have to deal with, and some of them don't make it. But the main character, she is and so they have different like kind of aspects. So the way their magic works is like everybody can use. You kind of have, there's two basic types of magic that, or sources for their magics. There's mana, which is built by putting an effort to something. It can be doing push-ups. It can be knitting. It can be anything that, dancing around, singing. All these different things can create mana, which is then used in a spell to do magic. There's an alternative to mana, which is called Malia, and that is basically you're not taking magic from, you're not building mana yourself and using that, or taking it from a mana source where mana has been stored, but you take it from somewhere else, something else, a plant, an animal, another person, a wizard, and stealing their essence to fuel your spells is using Malia. And the wizards that do that are called maleficers. And so the main character is, okay, so that's like the way the magic works. And then all of the wizards have some kind of affinity. So they are naturally better at certain types of magic. Some, like the main character, she is good at apocalyptic mass destruction kind of spells. So it doesn't mean she gets to do them very often because they still cost a lot of mana, but it's also like, so she's like, okay, I could create like a giant, mega volcano. That's not helpful here, or different things like that. But she's incredibly powerful, but she's not, there's an air to her that people just don't think she's a good person, and they often think that she is a maleficer, even though she never uses Malia, she only uses mana. And then there's another character in her school year that he is constantly saving other people in their class as much as he can, killing the Maleficaria, and he has the ability to take mana from the Maleficaria that he kills, and so they kind of develop this relationship, and then they're trying to figure out. So basically, you go through your 4 years here in this school, and they are stuck there. Like, they cannot leave. They are in there the whole time. And they when they're freshmen, and there's no teachers, this is all like automated type thing. The school is kind of like living, and they do their schoolwork, and then they do this, and then each year there's a graduation of the senior class, and their graduation happens. The seniors are put into the graduation hall, which is basically a place with all of the most dangerous Maleficaria that are in existence there, and they are trying to get through that out to the outside. That's the only time that the gates to the outside world are open, and so they do that. The seniors do, and so once you get to senior level, you try to form an alliance with a group of people and try to get out. Often a good chunk of the class doesn't make it, like half the class doesn't make it. But there are groups that come from the groups of wizards that they kind of have a leg up from other people. The wizards that are kids of wizards that don't live with other people in an enclave don't have as much of a leg up, and so there's a whole aspect of it which is really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I saw a review of it as I was starting it, which I think is correct. So there's a lot of exposition in the way she wrote this story. So it's kind of like a blend of like as it's happening, but also the main character telling you like what she's thinking. And there's a lot of that. And sometimes it's hard to tell, is the scene still happening? Or are you telling me like how you think about it from a later perspective? Which was a little weird. I still really like it. I still really like Naomi Novik. I think she's a great author. But definitely the character has and the main character is very snarky. And so there's a lot of that as well. And she's not the most likable person because she's pretty defensive about a lot of stuff. People have been telling her that she's evil for a long time. And her mother is like the most bright and sunshiny wizard that believes in healing and free love and like free healing for everybody. And, you know, so they're very different, but it's very interesting. So I really like this. It's the start of a trilogy. I'm excited to see the next one and what comes out after. It does kind of end on a what does that mean type of revelation that is really interesting. So I think it was a really great read. I really enjoyed it, but there is an aspect of it's definitely more heavy on the exposition side than the like he said this, then this happened, and that kind of aspect. I mean, that is there, but there's definitely a lot of the main character explaining things to you through exposition. But yeah, I really liked it, and that is the last one. I finished that one this morning. So that was the last thing that I got through. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. I've actually been listening to The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. There's on Audible, they did a like full cast of different people as different characters, and I've kind of been listening to that on and off between other books. I really love Neil Gaiman, and I'm excited to... I've never read The Sandman, the actual like comic, and so I've been interested in it. I think I just got to a part where it's really kind of picking up, and I'm interested to probably just finish that. And then I bet by the time that's done, that the next Stormlight book will be out, and I'll be onto that one. And if not, I'll be starting something else, and I'll talk about it later. So, if there are any books that you think would be, any series or anything that are similar to ones that I've talked about, you think would be good for me to check out, let me know anything down below. If you've liked any of these books, or want to tell me about something about this, any of the books that I talked about, please leave me a comment down below, and I'd be happy to interact with you all there. You can also get me on Instagram, NBC Stitcher, yeah, so I'll see y'all later. Bye!